Hey everybody, how are you all doing today? My name is Rob Phelan. I'm also known as the Fire Educator Online, and I am joined today by Athena Valentine, who is the voice behind Money Smart Latina and also the author of Budgeting for Dummies. Now, this is a brand new book that's being released in the For Dummies series. If you've ever walked through a bookstore or a library, I'm sure you've seen it. That very noticeable yellow, black, white cover design that breaks down topics for people in an easy to understand way. So not implying that any of us are dummies, but making it as simple as possible so that you could take any topic or conversation and understand it. So I'm really excited that Athena is going to be here today to break down budgeting for us. This is one of the most important parts of any personal finance class or learning about money. We're going to find out more about it, but essentially it is the act of managing what you have and making sure that you are achieving your goals. So Athena is going to really help us to break down what that's going to look like. She's going to help us with getting started, creating a good budget. So good in quotation marks and the right budget for you. And then maybe a little bit about how we can stick to a budget. So I think one of the things that a lot of Americans struggle with is actually sticking to the budget that they create. And maybe we'll get some tips from that today. You have a reflection document that came with this presentation. So hopefully you've got that in front of you. That is a Google Doc. It's got 6 questions on it, and you can fill that out as you listen to our presentation, or you can do it afterwards as you reflect on what you heard. If you are watching the replay, you should be able to find that in the YouTube description below this video. And if you are watching on YouTube, appreciate any likes and subscriptions that you can give so that you can get future speakers as they come in. So let's start it off. You have a really interesting bio on your website. So this is moneysmartlatina.com. And you said you were homeless in high school, which I want to go there. Like that was really like an eye-catching thing, particularly when we have a bunch of high schoolers here. Can you give me a little bit of your backstory and how you got involved in money?
So what had happened was my mom passed away my freshman year of high school, unfortunately. And her family just wasn't very responsible. And so I got passed off from like my aunt to my uncle, from my aunt to my uncle. And it was kind of like, unfortunately, who wanted to use like my social security benefits that month. And so they eventually stopped passing me around and I started living with friends, but they never gave me my social security check. So as a result, I was homeless for about 2 years in high school. So my sophomore year, my junior year, I was homeless for both of those years. Um, and then so I graduated from high school. I barely graduated from high school with a 1.79. And so I was like, okay, yes, like I just graduated high school. And then I went, so for that point of time, just because like I had been homeless and I just graduated high school and I started working, like I had really had to learn how to make my money stretch and how to make it go far because I didn't know when I would get more money until I had steady employment. And even when I did have steady employment, whatever paycheck I had that had to pay, like my car note, I had to pay my cell phone bill. I didn't have any financial support from family. So I really had to just make my money stretch. But I learned that's the first time I learned how to actually do it and how I got into money. And then I ended up getting into money about when I was 22 or 23. I had started going to community college, then I had stopped going to community college, then I had started, then I stopped. And then my student loans didn't go through. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to get these student loans for like 2 grand. And my ex was like, and I was like, can I borrow money? Because I knew my ex had it. And he was like, where does your money go? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, you don't pay any bills. Like, you don't have a car note anymore and you don't pay any bills like in our apartment. So, like, where is all your money going? And I was like, oh crap, I don't know where my money is going. And so that's really what started me off on like getting involved in finances, trying to make my money stick, trying to be more consistent with earning more money because I had no problem spending the money. I just had a problem making sure I could cover my expenses. And so that's just really like when my money journey started. And then I started doing this more professionally in my 30s.
Yeah, there was a part of your bio, and I just wrote it down because it really stood out to me. It said, because I didn't have it in high school, I got crazy about money in college. I didn't have to
Mm-hmm.
worry about it due to the easy access of student loans, and I got really
Mm-hmm.
good at spending it. So there was this mentality of not having a lot of it in high school, which I think a lot of us high school students probably experience. Like we have a limited cash flow. Like we probably are not in the same situation that you were in,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't have as much cash. We work, we enjoy having it, we like spending it, and we're not responsible for many of our core needs. And then when you get into college and now you've got this big student loan available, or you get that first big kid job and you've got this huge salary compared to what you used to have, it's very easy, I think, to fall into that trap of just spending it all, right?
Yeah, so like, I didn't have any money in high school until I had steady employment. And even then, that was like gone pretty quickly because I had to cover all of my expenses. And then I got into student loans. And at the time, when I did my FAFSA and I went to college, they literally had you play. This was like, I'm dating myself. This was 2004. And they would have you play a video game on the computer. And it was like to help you understand your student loans. But like it was like Candyland, and all you wanted to do was get to the end of the page. So you just hit click, I accept, and then all of a sudden, like I was getting, and this was in 2004, I was getting $3,000 a semester for student loans, like at a community college. That's crazy to me. But yeah, I was getting $3,000 a semester, and so I would just use that as additional income after I had paid for my books and my tuition. And I went on trips with that money. I redecorated my closet because I had stable like housing for the first time in a while, so I redecorated my closet. I bought a new car. Like it was just crazy how I spent this money.
And for everyone, this is a very common thing. It's called lifestyle inflation, that when you suddenly have more money, you raise your expenses and your costs to meet that new income. And where a lot of adults are very guilty of doing this, that money will be spent. It's sort of like that saying that you will get the task done in whatever time you give to it. If you have money laying around, not really doing anything with no purpose, you will find a way to spend it. And like Athena experienced, you may have no idea where it went at the end of the month because you won't have much to show for it. But money just has this tendency to just escape us. It just
Mm-hmm.
disappears, it floats away, it finds its way out of your pocket and into someone else's if we're not intentional about what we do. And
Exactly.
I think this brings us very nicely into the main point of this conversation, budgeting. And you've written this book, Budgeting for Dummies, which is coming out very soon. Congratulations. That is very
Thank
exciting for
you.
you.
Thank you.
And you've broken down budgeting into the most easy to understand language, ideas as we possibly could. And I want to know more about that today. So let's start with what is budgeting? Because I know it's a very kind of dirty word for a lot of adults.
It could be budgeting, or at least for a lot of adults. So budgeting is like a spending plan. That's how I refer to it. So I refer to a budget as a spending plan and you telling your money where to go and not the other way around. So a money spending plan should have you add up all of your income and then add up all of your expenses and then take away from your expenses from your income and make sure by doing that, you'll see if you are making enough money to cover your expenses. And if you're not making enough money to cover your expenses, then you need to either cut your expenses or need to earn more. But in a nutshell, budgeting is making sure that your money is working for you and not against you.
And why is it such a negative term for so many people? Like, what is this negative association that we hear about when it comes to budgeting?
So, first of all, I think it's that a lot of people have shame around money. And even I had shame in high school around money because I didn't have money and my friends had money or they had family support. So I would be very embarrassed because I didn't have that. And so when you're budgeting as an adult, those feelings and experiences that you had when you're younger come up in your mind, right? And so as a result, then you go and you're like, okay, like you either don't know how to manage the money and that makes you feel embarrassed, or you don't have enough money and that makes you embarrassed. There are several things that can make you embarrassed, but I really think that it's a dirty word because people don't want to feel embarrassed by it.
I know for my wife and I, but when we first started with money, before we really started digging into it, a budget felt restrictive. It
Mm-hmm.
was us telling ourselves all the things that we couldn't have. And nobody likes that. Nobody likes to know, well, you can't have all these things, particularly in the world of Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, just social media in general, where you see all these amazing things, the highlight reel of what everyone else is doing with their lives. And you're shamed or embarrassed or envious of all these things and wondering, well, why can't I do that too? Why do I have to say no to this when neighbor over here can do it, or my best friend can do it, or the person that I admire on social media can do it?
Yeah, but you can do it. And that's why it's so important to have a budget, because a budget is what is going to allow you to go party with your friends down the street, or, go kick it at a house party, or, do anything that you want to do, buy a car, pay for that new iPhone. Like, a budget is what is going to get you there and what's going to help you cover all those expenses.
And this comes to a question that one of the students had in my room. Taylor asked, like, what's the importance of having a budget, and does everyone need one? So if it's not about saying no to things, it's a spending plan. Is this something that everybody should have?
Oh yeah, everybody should have a budget. And that's why you hear people that are super rich, like Warren Buffett, right? He has a budget. Like, he lives in a house he bought for $30,000 in 1958. So, I mean, that's how people kind of keep their money, right? Is from having a budget in the first place, because you're assessing your money, you're assessing your cash flow, and you know how much cash you have is going out and how much money you actually have for savings, or how much you have to do the things you want to do, like, go get the Air Jordans, or go get, go to Sephora and drop some cash. Like, that's the kind of stuff that you can do when you have a budget. So yeah, it's really important for everyone to have a budget. Plus, a budget is going to make sure that you're actually covering all your expenses and you're not forgetting anything.
But what if I'm like super high income? Like, I have more money coming in than I feel like I could spend in a given month. Do I need to budget?
Yes.
Why?
Yeah.
I got enough.
Okay, so a lot of people, I'm trying to think of any rappers that did this, but a lot of people that have a lot of money go broke within like so many years. So think the NFL, right? If you're A lot of NFL players could declare bankruptcy within 5 years of joining the NFL. Because if you're an NFL player, if you're a football player, you only get a couple, most NFL players only get a couple good years in the NFL, right? And you hear about the contracts that like Dak Prescott are getting, or Mahomes, and not all football players that make that amount of money. So most of them make like 1 or 2 million like their rookie season, and then they go up from there. But after they have a couple good years and then they're out of the NFL, they don't have anything to show for it, because they were living a crazy lifestyle and buying like, jewelry and buying cars and buying like houses that they just couldn't afford. And you have all these crazy things that you spend your money on, and a lot of it is financed. And you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to have money forever, right? So I'll just keep paying the bills later and later. Like, it's fine, it's taken care of. And then all of a sudden you lose that huge chunk of income and you're like, oh crap, what do I do?
Yeah. And this isn't just for NFL players. Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
average Americans are doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
There was a report from incharge.org that said 56% of Americans say that they are spending equal to or more than what they bring in each month. So it's like, yeah, money's coming in, it's going out, everything's covered, or even worse, I'm putting it on credit cards, or I'm going into debt to service all of my expenses each month. But we're not planning for a future event where we don't make money anymore. So like, we have this like dream in our head that we're going to work forever. And usually what happens is your body tells you at some point, no, you can't do that anymore.
Oh yeah.
Rather than you choosing to retire. Like, I think if you look at the stats, a lot of people are forced into retirement versus choosing to retire at some point in their lives. And are you prepared for that future event? Do you have enough to keep you going at that point? And then you had a very unfortunate, like, real life experience at a very young age where stuff happens, and you had a parent who passed away at a very young age, and you had to care for her for a couple of years, I think, before that even happened. Like, that's the kind of stuff, folks, that's going to hit your life at some point. Like, there will be a negative event in your life, and probably more than one, I can promise you, that is going to knock you down. It's going to kick your finances in the butt. And if you don't have this spending plan in place that allows for that, you're going to find it's going to really make life a lot harder for you, because your spending plan's got to account for these things, right? It's got to account for those unexpected events. Like,
Right.
we hear that stat all the time about the $400 one, that most Americans couldn't afford a $400 unexpected expense if it came up without going into debt.
Money.com released a survey that I actually referenced in my book. and it said that people that made up to 200, like they did a survey of like people that made $0 to $250,000, right? And that sounds like a ton of money because you're like, what would I do with 250K? Oh my gosh. A lot of the people they surveyed, out of the people they surveyed, 57% could not cover $1,000 expense. So here you are, and you're making like all this money, and you have stacks for days, but you still can't cover an emergency because you're balling out or you're living beyond your means.
Yeah, Dave Ramsey has a very popular saying, like, you can't out earn, and then he inserts a word that I don't want to say, but you can't out earn bad decisions. So there's no amount of income that you can make that's going to potentially save you from not knowing how to manage what you have.
Yep.
And then if you've ever read The Richest Man in Babylon, there's a wonderful saying in there that somebody is making it work with less money than you. It can be done. There's no real low amount that you can't budget with and get by on. So people can do it with your income. They can do it with less than what you have. They can do it with more than what you have. So everybody can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go into the nuts and bolts of how.
Yeah.
So Blake asked, like, how do you get started? And what are some different ways to budget? Because I know it's not a one size fits all thing. Like, there's lots of different ways to do this, right?
Yep. So I have my list of budgeting methods. So if I look over here a lot, it's not that I'm not paying attention to you, it's that I'm looking at my notes. But so how do you get started budgeting? So, okay, so the first step of getting started with budgeting is you are going to figure out, like you're going to sit and you're going to think and you're going to decide, why do I want to start budgeting in the first place? Okay. So you have to know why you're doing something in order to actually do it, right? I have ADHD, and I think life is a game. And I always ask people why. Why do I have to do that? Why do you want me to do this? Why am I going to do this? Because I won't lie, if I think something is stupid, then I won't do it. And like that gets me in hot water all the time, like as an adult too. But I have to know why I'm doing something so that way I'm going to actually do it and I'm going to be motivated to do it. So budgeting can be something such as, I want to start a budget because I want to buy a car. I want to start a budget because maybe I just want to like help my mom out from time to time. I know a lot of people do that as well. I had to do that. So maybe it's, you just have to figure out a goal. And so another goal that you could use for budgeting is, you want to go on a trip, or you want to pay off school so you don't go into student loan debt. You're hearing all this talk about student loan forgiveness right now and how that might not be passed. And so, and college is expensive. So, you have to figure out your goal, and you have to figure out what you want to get out of budgeting. Even if it's something like, I just want to be able to go out to eat every day for lunch. That's still a goal, and that's something you want to accomplish in your budget, right? So the next part of budgeting is you need to go over all of your expenses and see where your money has gone. Okay. That's the scary part, because a lot of us don't know where our money went in the first place, right? But what you can do if you're using a debit card, you can go to your bank and you can pull up your online banking, and they'll have an option for you to go and see all your transactions. So you can review your transactions that way. If you are more of a cash person and you're still not sure where your money is going, track your cash for a month. Okay. Be like, all right, track your cash, do it in your phone or do it in a little notebook, and just be like, hey, like today I spent $10.55 on Starbucks, or, yesterday I gave my friend $30 for gas because they were helping me go to and from work. So, just track your expenses, see where your expenses are, see where your money is going. Okay. The next part of creating a budget is that you need to go over your income. Okay, so you need to just go over and look at your income and see how much money you have going in, right? So for example, for me, I'm a writer. Okay, so I have the income from my book coming in, and then I have different freelance writing gigs that I get. I work for a personal finance conference. I do all these different things, and I get like income from all these different sources. So I go ahead and I track that. That's how you know how much money you have coming in on a regular basis to cover all the expenses and to cover everything that you're spending on. Okay. It's really important for you to have a deficit in your budget, but not a negative one, a positive one. So it's really important that you want to have money left over of your income after you deduct all of your expenses. If you find that you don't have enough income to cover your expenses, then you have a cash flow problem, and you need to see how you can go about either making more income, which I personally think is always easier, or making less, or cutting back your expenses so they're a smaller amount of money. Okay, so those are the first steps of budgeting, of creating a budget. You have to know where your money is going, and you have to know what's covering the money that's going out, because you need to redirect the money so you can have a positive steps, like next forwards, because the money that you're spending is the money you're going to be working with, and you have to take care of it. Okay, you can always get more money. I will never say that. But it still sucks when you go and you look back on all this money you could have put towards something you really wanted, but you were just trying to keep up with your friends, or you were just being like not budgeting enough time to get certain things done. So that's really important. So those are the first steps of budgeting. Should I jump into the different budgeting methods? Do I have any questions?
Well, just to summarize what you said, so a spending plan, a budget is going to help you achieve your goals. It's going to help you support the things that you really want to do, not what your friends want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the first step was to figure out where your money is going and where it's coming from. So tracking expenses, cash is a challenge. Like we have done this in class, and I don't know if you other classrooms watching have done this yet, but trying to track cash flow for an hour Monopoly game is a challenge, never mind for an entire month. So what are some strategies that you have for tracking cash flow? Where do you write this down, or how do you remind yourself to do it?
Okay, so there are I'm old school, so I have done it to where I track my cash in my planner. I have a big teacher planner that I still use, because once a teacher, always a teacher. And so I used to teach high school. So I have a big planner, and then I also keep track of it in the notes app in my phone, or I can keep track of it online using a Google Sheet, right, with Google Drive. But another way that you can do this that's a lot easier is, if you're part of Gen Z, is download a budgeting app. And so a lot of budgeting apps, they can either hook up to your checking account. It's safe, it's okay. They're not going to go and sell your information. And the budgeting app can go and they can track down all the sources of income that you have coming into your checking account. You can also manually just enter stuff into an app without entering, without hooking up a checking account if you don't have one yet. You can just go ahead in your budgeting app, and then you can update your income that way as well. There's always options to say, add expense, but then you can also say add income. And so you can keep track of your income that way. And so I think sometimes that's just the easiest way, because who's going to remember to write it down or pull up a Google Sheet or something? So that way, you get your phone and you're like, oh, okay, made this past weekend, I made $160 for dog sitting. So I could just go on my budgeting app, because that's not going to go in my checking account, right? It's cash. So I can just go into my budgeting app and I can hit the income button and I can say dog sitting 160. And then it'll just keep track of how much I'm making for that month.
Yeah, I love that. And some other ones that I'll add in that have worked for me is setting a daily alarm. So maybe for 8 p.m. or something like that. You're winding down for the day, you're done spending money for the day, and this alarm goes off and you're like, okay, what money did I spend today? What money did I make today? And you log that in whatever medium of choice that you have. So there's great apps out there such as mint.com, Every Dollar, YNAB. A Google Sheet is a very simple one to do as well. The Notes app on your phone is awesome. There's even tables in there if you want to try and log income and expenses differently, categorize them and all that stuff. There's lots of ways to do this. I've had pieces of paper folded up in my wallet that I write it down on. You can do this whatever way makes the most sense to you, but you just have to remember to do it.
Yeah.
Putting all your cash into your checking account. So if you have cash, put it into your checking account and then spend on your debit card only is a great way to do it as well, so that you can have that digital, transaction recorded, so that you can go back at the end of a month and see, okay, where did I spend my money? Or on a credit card, if you're starting to use credit cards, same idea. But you just want to make sure you are reminding yourself to do this. And it's a habit. It's a muscle that you build up, and you're going to be really bad at it at the beginning if you've never done this before. Give yourself those supports through things like alarms, reminders on your phone, a note beside your bed to be like, what did you spend money on today? Anything that will help you.
Yeah, and I have a chapter about apps and for college students, and I'm not sure if it's in the chapter for college budgeting, but I know I have sections in my book for those that are in high school and for college. So I'll go ahead and I'll pull that, and I can always pull a list and send it to you, and you can distribute it for everyone that's watching this video as well.
Yeah.
The other cool thing though, I want to talk about with Mint or with other budgeting apps is if you do have it linked to your checking account and you're spending your money with transactions, right, with your debit card, the app will go ahead and they will actually track your spending for you and they will categorize it. So you can go on mint.com and you can see like the different areas of like how much money you have spent in different categories because they go ahead and they round up the spending and they track it for you. So you can go on Mint and be like, well, how much did I spend on dining out? And you can click on something and it's like $291. And when you're an adult, that actually doesn't sound like a lot of money for eating out. But yeah, so then you can go, wow, and it goes ahead and it categorizes things for you. So then that way you can kind of just look over everything in the glass and you're like, no, I can't go do that. I've already spent this much money this month and it's just not going to work.
Yeah, and that's a great thing to see, that insight of where am I spending that money. So am I spending a lot of money on eating out? But then when I think back on what my goals are and what really makes me happy, does eating out actually make me that happy? If yes, great, keep doing that. You're doing a great job. If no, and you're sacrificing something that you really want to do, like traveling or
Go to a concert.
doing fun things like that. If that's at a sacrifice to eating out and you don't care about eating out, then you know that's a place you can make a change. But let's go into the actual budget itself. So we've tracked our income. We've got an idea where our expenses are. We've maybe got some categories going on of where we're spending money. Now, how do we make the plan?
Okay, so there are 4 different methods that you can try. I think one is going to be very easy for you guys. A couple are going to be more in depth, and another one is something that you might want to try. So we'll go ahead and we'll talk about the ones that have a few more things to do, and then I will talk about the easy one for you guys. And then you guys will be like, oh my gosh, that's such a cool idea. Or you can even say, some people even say, oh my God, I've been doing that this whole time. It's the anti-budget. It's not. But we'll go ahead and we'll get started with the methods. So the first method of budgeting that you can try is called zero-based budgeting. And so zero-based budgeting is when you look over your income and you assign every dollar in your income a job. Okay. So, and it covers your expenses as well. So say I have $1,000. Okay. I want to give every single dollar of that $1,000 amount a job. So with zero-based budgeting, what I'm going to do, and let's say I make $1,000 a month, because that's reasonable, right? When you're younger. So I make $1,000 a month, and I have to take care of like my car and my car note and insurance and all that is about $300. So I have my $1,000 and I subtract my $300 for my car, okay? And then everything else with that $700, you're going to spread that out into categories of things that are going to cover your expenses. So let's say I have my $700 and I know I need gas to get to and from work. That's going to be $50, okay? So now you have $350 that you have assigned a job to, and then you have $650 that you still need to give a job to. So you're going to go over and look at that. So maybe $100 of it is hanging out with your friends. Maybe another $100 of that is going to the Little Nas concert that you want to attend. I saw him in October. He's awesome, by the way. And then, maybe the other couple $100 you're going to put towards saving for school or saving for a graduation trip when you graduate high school. Or maybe you're going to put it towards college and say, I have a couple $100 for college. So you want to get to the point where you have no more money left in your income that's just random and sitting there. You want to assign a job to every single dollar so that way you know where your money is going, and that way you know that all your expenses are covered.
And just a big thing to point out here, saving, investing, future goals, that is part of your budget. That's an expense or a way that your money is leaving your checking account. So you are allocating a job to every single dollar in this budget. So it's a zero-based budget. You have zero left at the end of the month. It has nothing to do. Everything has got a job. I love that. That's how my wife and I budget.
That's how I try to budget, and I always forget. But at the same time, I'm so sorry, there's construction across the street. At the same time, what you're doing is a lot of people may say, oh my God, I'm going to have $0 left at the end of the month. Like, that's crazy. How am I going to afford X, Y, and Z? Well, that's why it's important to put money aside for X, Y, and Z. So like you said, what if I want to randomly go out with my friends one day? Well, you put $100 towards it for the month. You have the money. It's up to you to kind of spread it out accordingly and not spend it all on like the first weekend you have free that month. So that's what I love about it. The next method that I want to talk to you is like zero-based budgeting. It's called the cash envelope system. And so this is what I like to do because, yeah, I find this is easier for me because whenever I swipe my debit card, it doesn't register to me that I'm spending money. It's kind of to me like a piece of plastic. And so by counting out actual dollar bills, it has made it more tangible. Like I can actually feel it and I can actually see it leaving my budget. And so that way I'm more likely to stick to it. So the cash envelope budget is you have your checking account and you have the $300 to decide $300 for our car expense. So we have $300 for our car expense. Then we have $700 left. So you're going to withdraw the money from your checking account and you are going to put every dollar into a category. So it doesn't have to be all broken down like it is for zero-based budgeting. Let's make it easy. Let's say we have $700 and we have an envelope and we're going to put, oh, sorry. So each envelope is its actual category, like zero-based budgeting. So you're going to put your cash into an envelope and that's how you're going to know how much you have to spend for that month. So again, $100 goes towards my Little Nas concert. And then you'd put $100 in like an entertainment envelope, or you would put Little Nas on the envelope. And then, okay, I'm gonna put $100 towards go eating out, and then you put $100 in your eating out envelope. And then you're gonna say, okay, I need gas to get to and from work. That is gonna go in a gas envelope, and I'm gonna put $50 towards that. And so you're gonna do that to where you have all of your money, all that $700 in an envelope. So the beauty of that is, you have your cash in an envelope, you're going on like, like you're going to the concert and you're like, okay, I have $100 left to spend. So you know that you can spend like 40 on a t-shirt, 60 on like refreshments or some other type of thing they're doing at the concert. But you know that that's all the money you have for the concert. And once the money is gone out of the envelope, you're done spending.
Okay. So we take all of our money out of our checking account. So whatever you made in your paycheck, you pull it out, you have it in cash, and you decide at the beginning of the month, this is where I think I'm going to spend my money. So I'm going to put this amount in gas, this amount to my car note or to rent or whatever it is. Like you divide it up into your different categories, and they can be pretty broad categories. Like you could have a food envelope, which is eating out and groceries. You could have a transport one. You can have as many envelopes as you want, basically. Larry had a good question though about what happens when you need to move money. So say like you put $50 into your gas envelope, but you forgot, oh, I have to drive to my Little Nas concert. And I didn't consider that when I was planning this out. So I have a higher gas expense this month than I normally do. What happens then?
So one thing you can do is you can move your cash around in your envelope. So, okay, we're driving to the Lil Nas X concert and I need an additional $25, right? So you can look throughout your envelopes and you can see, okay, do I have any cash left in any other categories that I can put towards my gas? So maybe you take 20 bucks out of eating out, or maybe you take $10 out of, your phone bill, not your phone bill, some other expense that's variable that fluctuates. But what I like to do, and this is a really good rule of thumb for everybody who budgets, is you put aside money for miscellaneous expenses, right? So miscellaneous expense is something that you just pops up and you weren't really going to try. You weren't really like planning for it, right? So I ran low. I spent more on my gas, but I didn't account I had to go to my concert. So I could take money out of my miscellaneous envelope to cover my gas for that month. My favorite thing is I didn't know that my eyeliner was going to go on sale at Ulta. And so I only have $25 in my beauty envelope. So I can look at my miscellaneous envelope and say, oh, okay, like I'll take $10 more from this. So the miscellaneous envelope actually covers you from those things when you spend a little bit too much in one category, or you didn't quite put enough aside in a different category in an envelope. And actually, I highly recommend that for adults, for high schoolers, for everybody, because it's very easy to not have enough money to put towards gas. And then you feel defeated and you're like, well, look, I tried budgeting. It doesn't even work for me. So I'm just going to throw in the towel. Your miscellaneous fund will actually keep you on track to keep on with your budget.
And that's an important thing. We are not great predictors of what's going to happen in a given month. And there's always something that pops up that you forgot or you didn't expect to happen. So this unexpected expenses envelope or category is really important. My wife and I have a stuff we forgot to budget for category. And that's $50 a month that just could be deployed in whatever way it's needed. And if that's not enough, then like you said, you are finding cash in other places that you could use for this thing that you really want to do. If that's what you're deciding, I need to use money for this. And it means spending less somewhere else. So it's always balancing out. You're still spending less than what you make. And that's the core of budgeting right there. You spend less than what you make. Okay, there should be two more strategies left. What are they?
Yeah, let's go ahead and jump to them. So do you guys want to hear the easy strategy, or do you want to hear the like, it's easy, but you're still a little bit more thinking?
Let's go easy first.
Easy strategy. So we are going to talk about the pay yourself first budget. Okay. So the pay yourself first budget is you take 10% of your income and you're going to automatically put that towards your financial goals. Okay. So your financial goals can be, saving to go on that trip, or it can be saving for your concert, or it can be, putting money aside so you can make an extra payment on your student debt loan or your student loan. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to put 10% of your income. So 10% of your income, if you have $1,000, is $100. So automatically your $100 goes towards a savings goal, or it goes to like a debt goal. I know that when I was in high school, I would borrow money from friends and I would pay them back, and I would make that like actual goal in my budget is to pay my friend back. Okay. So, or when I was saving for a car. So automatically 10% of your income goes towards your savings. And then the rest of your money, you spend however you want. And so you have to make sure your expenses are covered, but that other $600, who cares how you spend it, right? As long as you don't go over, that's your money to spend. And you've already put money aside to hit your financial goals, which was why you're budgeting in the first place.
So yeah, you're making sure future use taken care of. And a great strategy for that is when your employer is paying you, particularly if they're doing direct deposit, is you just set up that it either is going to split your paycheck and send half, like the 10% to a savings account and the rest goes into your checking account, or you set up that automatic transfer from your checking to your savings on the days that you get paid. So whether that's weekly, biweekly, monthly, whatever it is. So you never had that money. It's gone. You paid yourself first, and then whatever's left, spend it down to zero. You've taken care of future you. It sounds like it requires a little bit of self-discipline, that you still need to manage that remaining money to make it to the end of the month, and make sure you are hitting all of your goals. So it could be an easier one, but it may also not allow for all of our goals to be hit. Or it may require like getting to the end of the month and being like, I got to make it through the end of this week on beans and rice because there's nothing left. So it's easy, but also hard at the same time. What's the slightly leveled up version of this?
Okay, the slightly leveled up version is the 50-30-20 budget. And so the 50-30-20 budget, you still are paying yourself first, but you're actually doing something with the money that you have remaining so it can help you last towards the end of the month. So 50% of your money, so 50% out of 1,000 would be $500. 50% is to cover your needs. So that means your car payment, right? Because you have to have that taken care of, or gas to get to and from work. If you're older or you're living on your own, your needs are, your rent, your groceries, your utilities, making sure your bills are on, making sure your phone's paid. So your needs go into that 50%. So the $500 out of 1,000, that is to cover your needs. Then you take 30% of your $1,000. The 30% in the 50-30-20 budget stands for your wants. So $300 of your $1,000, that $300 is for your fun stuff. So that's like going out with your friends, that's going to a concert, that's buying clothes that you want. That all comes out of that $300 because that's the 30% of your income, okay? So the 20% in the 50-30-20 budget is actually going towards your financial goals. So instead of saving, $100 like the previous budgeting method had you do, you would actually put aside $200. And so you're going to take 20% of your income and you're going to put that towards your financial goals. So instead of having just the 100, you're going to have an additional 100. That will help you hit your financial goals faster, but it'll also give you more money to work with and you can have more goals that you want to accomplish as well.
And I usually hear this one used by people who have been budgeting for a while. They're like, okay, I've got kind of a good grip on how much I spend each month. I know I
Mm-hmm.
can fit my needs into 50% of my income. I can
Mm-hmm.
do 30% for wants, and then 20% is for saving, investing. And that includes your emergency fund, your long-term saving. So if you've got something like college to pay for in a couple of years, maybe that could be in there, or a car, or a house down payment, or a wedding, whatever it is. It's got your short-term savings goals. So like the Lil Nas concert, like that all goes into that 20%. So you have a 20% savings rate. And then the 30% for wants, spend it whatever way you want. Like as soon as it hits zero, you're done. But there shouldn't be anything that you need to buy out of that money. So when it's gone, it shouldn't really negatively impact your life other than being like, well, it stinks, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
The hard part is making sure that your needs fit into that 50%. So you have to be very conscious about what are your needs and fitting it within that box. All right, so we got 4 different methods for budgeting. The first one was the zero-based budget. So that's where every dollar has a job. It's much more detailed. You kind of give every single down to the dollar job and you try and predict exactly how you're going to spend your money in a month. It's a
So
hard thing to do.
if you have control issues, that budget is for you.
Yes. So yeah, if you're getting started and you haven't budgeted before, it's a good one to start with because you can at least start trying to think about where's my money going, getting used to giving it directions and jobs to do, setting up your automatic transfers. As you get a little bit better at it, or the cash envelope system is a great one for that too. As you get a little bit better, maybe graduate to some of these other ones. So the pay yourself first budget, where you're just like, future me taken care of, I can manage on the rest of this very easily. I find a lot of higher income earners do that. They're like, okay, future me taken care of, I can spend what's left. I got a rough idea of what's in my bank account at all times, so I know I'm not overspending. It's a great one to do. It's very low maintenance. And then the last one we talked about, like the 50-30-20 rule, a lot of automatic transfers to do that 20% savings rate, the 30% for wants, maybe put that in your checking account. And then the needs one, maybe have that in a separate checking account that you can just, all needs come out of that one. And then wants come out of the other one. And when they're both gone, we're done spending for the month. All right. So 4 different methods. How do we know which one's the right one for us?
Okay, so I have a couple of questions for you. Or not, yeah. So first of all, one of the ways that you can determine that which budgeting method is for you is how involved you want to be with your money. So like I joked earlier, the zero-based budgeting method was for people with control issues. But if you are really like an analytical person and you pay attention to detail, the zero-based budgeting method might be for you. If you're looking for more of a hands-off approach, or you're kind of just really overwhelmed, then maybe you want to go with a 50-30-20 budget or the pay yourself first budget. If you have financial goals and you need to make sure your money is not if you don't overspend on any of your categories, then probably the cash envelope might be a better fit for you.
Yeah, I agree on that. If you've had trouble managing your debit cards, like you're overspending, you don't have that running tally in your head of what's left in your checking account,
Mm-hmm.
or you've had some maybe credit card problems, or you're paying down debt, the cash envelope system is probably the best one to start with because you can see the physical money. And like Athena said earlier, there is a psychological difference to spending cash versus spending on plastic. We feel it.
It's called pain of pay. Pain of paying. This is an actual psychological thing, and I found it. It's also in my book. But yes, it's called the pain of paying principle. And so it's just there have been psychologists have gone and done a huge published study on it. And they just talk about why it hurts to part with your cash more than it does a debit card.
I get it. Like you feel it, you see it. You can see your money going down. When it's just numbers on a screen, it's not as impactful. So that could be a place to start. If you've never budgeted before, maybe try starting with cash. Next question I have for you is, what are some strategies for creating a budget and then sticking to it? So we talked about the types of budget, but I want to get started. We said tracking income expenses. How do I stick to this? It's all well and good to have a goal and to start it off. I think I saw somewhere, it was from CNBC, 73% of Americans are creating financial goals at New Year's. but only half of them are actually sticking to it. So how do we stick to these goals?
I'm actually surprised that that's 50% of the people actually accomplish that, to be
It seemed high
perfectly
to me,
honest.
but that's what the stat said.
I'm like, really? Who's accomplishing all their goals? Okay, well, guess what, guys? You are going to be, because you're learning how to budget now. So, okay, one of my first tips to getting your budget to stick is to be realistic. So, when you create your budget, you need to be realistic about your circumstances. And so when I say that, it's okay, say you spend a lot of money eating out on lunch, okay? You are not going to, and you're like, okay, well, I don't really want to eat out anymore. I'd rather put my money towards something else. Your brain automatically thinks you're still going to be eating out, right? Because that's what you have been doing and that's how it's been conditioned. So instead of saying, I don't want to spend, I was spending 200 eating out every day and now I don't want to spend any of that. That's not realistic. Okay, because your mind, you've already created habits around it. So maybe you want to go ahead and you just want to put a smaller amount. And then every budgeting cycle, you can go ahead and you can cut back in a category until you're spending what you actually want to be spending. Okay, so that's my first tip to you, is to be realistic. My second tip is to save for emergencies. So we already talked about, a negative situation or a negative life event is going to happen to you, right? You just don't know when. So it's really important that you always have some money aside that can help you. Okay. So when I was in college, I had bought a car, and my first day of school, or it was my second day of school, my alternator went out. And so I needed to have, to get to school. And I happened to have $700 saved up, and my alternator cost me, I think it was $600. But I had that money saved up. And my car was running fine. Like I didn't have like an idea this was going to happen. But again, stuff happens. So you have to have that money put aside. Even if it is something as small as like $100 or $200, you might think that's not a lot of money, miss, but it actually can add up, and you would be surprised how much $100 can bail you out. And so another two more tips that I have for you is to find ways to cut your expenses. So it might be a little harder when you're in high school, but you still want to go ahead and you want to cut your expenses. The less money you need to spend on your expenses, like for, living, like necessities, the more money you'll have for fun, the more money you'll have to like do other things with. So let's see here. So if you have an iPhone and you're paying for a phone plan with Apple or with AT&T, okay, maybe you want to go and you want to look at Verizon, or you want to look at Cricket, and you want to see, okay, who has a cheaper plan that maybe I can actually use and I can save money on my cell phone bill. So let's say you're spending $100 and you just saved $20 off your cell phone bill. You can then take that $20 and go apply it to somewhere else in your budget. So spoiler alert, Cricket is actually owned by AT&T. So Cricket has the same reception that AT&T does. They run off AT&T towers, just to let you guys know. And then you also, and like I've already mentioned, if you don't want to eat out as much, go ahead and gradually cut that back. And then you can go ahead and use that money to apply it to different things. So you'll be surprised at how easy, once you get started, how easy it does become to start to cut back on your expenses, especially if there's something you really want to do that isn't, that there's something you really would rather do than what you've already been doing, if that makes sense. My last tip to getting your budget to stick is to put money aside for fun. A lot of people that I know that are also, teach about money or personal finance, they really go hard on just saying, have your zero-based budgeting, make sure all your expenses are covered, and any money you have after paying your expenses, you put towards your financial goals. And they don't say, put money aside for fun or put money aside for something that you want to do. If your life does not have fun, you're going to be miserable. So you need to put some money aside. And then that also encourages you to stay on your budget. So like you were saying earlier, okay, well, I want to go hang out with my friends, but I can't hang out with my friends. So put aside money in your budget to go hang out with your friends. That's okay. You can do stuff like that. It just has to be accounted for in your budget plan.
Okay, so to summarize the tips, start small. Like you're making changes to habits, start with tiny ones, make small
Mhm.
changes, start tracking things at a small scale, maybe make a budget for a week instead of a month to start off with. So
Mhm.
small and build yourself up. This is going to take a while to change a habit. Plan for the unexpected, expect the unexpected, which is a hard thing to do because you don't know it's coming, but you have to start setting aside money so that when something unexpected comes up, which it will, it won't derail and tear apart your entire budget. And you're like, well, that was a waste of time. Cut down on expenses where you don't care about them. The other thing I would add into that is focus on your big three: your food, your transportation, and your housing. If you can be smart about how you spend money in those three categories, you'll find the other ones are just going to kind of take care of themselves. So most Americans spend the most money on their food, their transport, and their housing. So if you can do like Athena said, like shop around, be intentional, be smart, take your time on these expenses and keep them as low as possible while not sacrificing your comfort or the quality of life goals that you have, the rest of your money will kind of take care of itself. And then we've got the why. Why are you doing this? So before you start budgeting, give yourself a strong why. If you don't have a good why for doing it, you will stop doing it because why would you do it? And then the last one, have fun. So
Mhm.
plan for fun. Build it in. You don't have to save every single cent that you make beyond your needs. Like that's not fun. You can do it, but it's not going to lead to happiness typically for most people, unless like it gives you a lot of happiness to see your bank account go up. For some people, it does, but it shouldn't be just about money, guys. It shouldn't be just about a number. There should be other things in your life that bring you joy and happiness, and we want to support those too. All right, that brings us to like the end of our kind of presentation part. If you have any questions, so those of you who are watching live, please by all means send your questions in via the chat feature. We'd love to answer those. If you're watching the replay, drop your questions in the comment section of the video so that Athena and I can come in and answer these for you when we get a chance. One question I have from my students that hasn't been answered yet is from Tommy, and it was, how often do you adjust your budget? So like we can make this grand plan at the start of a month and then realize very quickly that it's not working. And instead of throwing our hands up and being like, well, that didn't work, how do you adjust a budget as the month happens or as life happens?
Happens. Okay. So what you can do is say that you've already gone and you've done your zero-based budget, right? And then halfway through it, you're like, okay, this is just not going to work. Be mindful of the rest of your spending, right? Only put aside what you absolutely need to get through the rest of the month. And then at the end of the month, when you're making your budget for the next month, then maybe you want to go ahead and you want to alter the categories. Okay. So say, oh man, I really went over on transportation. I didn't know it was going to cost so much to get to and from my new job. You're going to go back and you're going to say, okay, so $100 isn't working in gas. We got to go back and we're going to change that category to $200. And then we're going to take the additional 100 away from other categories. So I can take 25 from this category, 25 from that category, etc. You can do that in the middle of the month too. If you see that your budget is already not working, that's something else you can do. Or for first time budgeters, you can also do kind of damage control, right? So you don't want to throw in the towel, but you can say, okay, my budget is going haywire. I've already spent this amount of money. How can I minimize the bleeding, right? So you can say, all right, well, this week I'm only going to spend $200. Or, I'm going to try to make this smaller amount of money work for this week. So then I don't go too off my budget and I'm still making some financial progress. Stuff happens. We're not always going to be on our budget. One time my cat got surgery and it was like my emergency fund went out in one day. And then after that, I ended up spending, and a lot of people will say, why didn't you just get a new cat? But I ended up spending $9,000 on medical bills for this cat. And I was like, okay. And so obviously my budget wasn't going to work for that month. It wasn't going to work for the next month. So I just took a step back. I made sure that all of my needs were taken care of, like my rent, my car note. And then I just had to go ahead and like reassess the rest of my spending and be like, okay, this is new. What has happened? That actually had me get a little bit more serious about creating personal finance content. So I guess it was kind of a weird jumpstart career blessing, a weird thing like that. But yeah.
And that the pet story is very relevant to my life as well. We got two cats a few months ago, and within the first couple of months, we had two hospital visits for the kitten who loves to eat things that he's not supposed to eat.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, isn't that so expensive?
Yes. And one of the things that I want to add into this is insurance. And we will have
Yes.
a whole like speaker come in and talk about insurance at some point. But insurance is the transfer of risk from you to an insurance company. So the risk of something bad happening, like a kitten eating a palm that he's not supposed to eat and it getting lodged in his stomach, and you have to go
Mhm.
get it out. So the thing you can do to reduce the risk of things upsetting your budget are things like insurance, where if something really bad hits the fan, you will be able to let the insurance company take care of that. And you plan for the insurance expense. So you plan to pay your premium each month, knowing that if things go really bad, it will be taken care of. And that's just part of your expected
Yeah.
expenses.
Yeah. And make sure you do get a speaker in on insurance because this past weekend, like I already know insurance was like, I write an advice column. So people write me and ask me money questions every week, and I answer them for Slate magazine. But this past weekend, one of my best friends was in a rollover car accident. And so she's doing better, but I mean, she had like brain damage, she's lost her hearing, she can't walk anymore. And so she is like, she can't work for 8 weeks. Okay. So she's calling me and she's like, can I get short-term disability as a freelancer? And I'm like, you already have to have that insurance policy in place before you get hurt. And then I asked her, do you have gap insurance for your car? Didn't have gap insurance. And now she still owes her lender on her car. There's just all these different things that could have been like insurance policies and insurance plans to different types of insurance that if she had had that, she would have been better off. And so now I'm currently kind of paranoid and I'm like, okay, what insurance do I have to have as a freelancer for myself, for my house, for my car? So yes, insurance definitely will help save your finances. Is what I've come to learn.
So yeah, watch out for that. We'll have a speaker on insurance very soon. It's one that you have to do a bit of digging into. Particularly, it's very individual to you what insurance you need. If you're in a position like Athena, where you are a freelancer, which means you don't have an employer, you're not an employee, you work for yourself. It's different to maybe if you are an employee and you have benefits provided by your employer. So as you get out into the big world of work, you will start realizing quickly that there is this insurance thing, and it's not the easiest space to navigate. So we will try and help you with that. All right. I want to ask one final question of you. And that actually, I have one more from a student. And this one, she asked me before we started this call, and it's from Gia. And she wants to know, what do you do if your income is variable? Like you either are a seasonal worker or your income changes every month based on the number of hours you work. Sometimes it's really hot, sometimes it's cold. As a freelancer, maybe you have like really good months where you make a lot or the paychecks all come in together, or months where it's really slow. How do you budget when you don't have predictable income?
Okay, so I actually just wrote an entire article about this that I'll go ahead and I'll send to you and you can share with your students just because it goes more in depth with different tips about how to budget on an irregular income. So what I do, and irregular income is not for the weak, first of all. And I have learned some hard lessons in my 30 some years about budgeting on irregular income as a freelancer. So I just want to go ahead and say that. But what you can do is you take your income that you have previously earned either the past 3 months or the past 6 months. You take all that income, you add it, and then you divide it by either, okay, so if I'm tracking for 3 months of income, I am going to put all the money that I made over the 3 months. So I'm going to say, okay, 1 month I made $1,500, 1 month I made $1,000, 1 month I made $500. So 4 grand. I'm going to take that 4 grand and I'm going to divide it by 3. And that is what's going to tell me how much money I average per month for my income. And so it's called a baseline income when you're budgeting with irregular pay. And so you take that and you're like, okay, realistically, this is the money I can afford for my expenses for the month.
And I think the key is to that is when you have a higher than baseline pay month, that you are putting some of that money aside for the months where you have less. The other would be that you budget based on your lowest expected paycheck amount. And if you can cover your needs with that, then you know at least like I will never go hungry in a month. And then anything above that can go into that wants category. So if you're doing that like 50, 30, 20, you've got your needs covered, you've got your future investing, saving stuff covered, and
Yeah.
then that other category can bloat based on how variable your income is. And you can have fun with it. You can add more to your savings if you want, but you budget based on worst case scenario kind of thing.
Yeah. And so real quickly, my friend Shanita writes, works for DoorDash. And so like you, she goes and she takes her lowest month, the lowest income month she had over the past 6 months, and that's what she uses as her baseline budget. Another thing you can do, and this is what I really, really, really recommend if you are doing irregular income, is to have a stack of cash put aside. So you are going to have those months where you make less money. You are going to have those months where, different things are happening. So you might need cash. So as a freelancer, a lot of your clients, not to discourage anyone, but a lot of clients pay late. So it's totally normal that I have $4,000 floating around in Al Gore's internet and I haven't been paid for it yet. And that's just a hard truth about freelancing. I cannot budget on money that I don't have in my checking account. So therefore, but I can budget on the money that I have saved up. And so you can have a little buffer for when the months are harder than others. That's my other goal. And that's what I wish I had done before I quit my day job, before I quit my teaching job. That's my number one regret, was I didn't have a stack of cash saved up to help with cash flow.
Yeah. So if you don't have a predictable income, you work for yourself, you work in a service industry where you get paid based on the number of clients you see or cars you fix or whatever it is. You're going to have hot months, you're going to have cold months. Make sure you are accounting for that when you plan your budget. And you could just say okay, whatever I have on the first of the month, that's what I'm going to budget with. But that becomes very hard, especially when we have expenses that occur every single month. So when you're planning for things like your rent, your cell phone bill, you can't really say, oh, this month I'm going to lower that bill because I don't quite have the money for that. So just make sure you got that baseline pay accounted for and then budget based on that. All right, Athena, last question for you. What is your number one piece of advice for teens when it comes to building wealth in the future?
Earn more.
Earn more. That's it.
Earn more. And this is why I say that. So it's easier to budget and it's easier to accomplish your financial goals if you earn more money. You can't save what you don't earn. And that's what I always tell people. So if I want to save $50,000 for a house down payment and I'm only making $30,000, that's going to be a lot harder for me to accomplish. However, if I'm making more money, say I'm making $60,000 and I'm oh, okay, I can definitely work towards that a bit faster. It's more realistic. The more you earn, I know I went in about how people get super rich and then they lose it all, but they just didn't know how to manage their money. So if you know how to manage your money and then you start earning and earning and earning more, you're unstoppable. And the more you earn when you're younger, the more you're going to earn when you're older. That's just the way life works.
Yep. So increase your income. And I'll add on to that, try and do it from different sources. So don't just focus on your job and saying let me move up this ladder as much as possible to increase my income. Try and bring money in from different places so that if one of those fails, it doesn't blow up your budget and totally ruin your finances.
Yeah, that's true. And it can be, like I said, I dog sat this weekend and I made $160. I'm not a professional dog sitter. It's not my main source of income, but I was I'm not going to turn down a money making opportunity. And so I took it. And, that money is going to be from my Mexico trip in a few weeks. So.
That sounds awesome. All right, Athena, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find you if they want to follow you on social media? We know you've got this book, Budgeting for Dummies. I'm sure you can find that at all major book selling locations. But yeah, where can they find you if they want to contact you, reach out to you, or follow you?
Okay, so first of all, you guys are the first stop on my virtual book tour. So thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for that. And thank you for this opportunity. Second, you can find me at moneysmartlatina.com. If you want to get a hold of me and drop me a line, email is the best way to go. So it's my name, ATHENA, at moneysmartlatina, all one word, .com. You can also go ahead and find me on Instagram if that's more easier. I'm Money Smart Latina on there, and you can drop me a DM that way. And yeah, Budgeting for Dummies comes out on May 9th, and that's really cool. And even as a high schooler, you can take all that information and you can apply it to your finances, or you can at least know what you should do once you graduate high school. And so if you go ahead and you order a book, let me know. and I will go ahead and I will send you an autograph for your book. And so this is called Book Plates. The dedication page of my book is Snoop Dogg. It's a Snoop Dogg quote, and I'm dedicating my book to me. And so, because the dedication page of my book is Snoop Dogg, my book plate is Puff Daddy, and it says it's all about the Benjamins, baby. Because I had to, show some love to the East Coast and the West Coast.
I love that. So if you end up ordering your own copy of Budgeting for Dummies, please reach out to Athena and let us know. And authors, by the way, they love that. If you ever read a book, reach out to the author. They may or may not answer, but they always love hearing that somebody is reading their book, and you never
Oh
know
yeah,
if you get a response.
yeah. Oh, I'll respond if you're like, hey, I'm part of, the money class. I my kids are up here, other people are kind of like down here, but that's why I was a teacher for so long. So I will always respond to someone who messages me and they're a high schooler.
All right, Athena, thank you so much for your time. Thank you all for watching. If you're joining us live or watching the replay, we'll see you soon, and watch out for more upcoming events.
Thanks. Have a good day, guys. Make good choices. Don't do drugs. Bye.